Okay, so hello and welcome to another video, and I'm fully aware I haven't done one of these for a long time, so I thought I'd jump on and just sort of talk you through an edit or something, just to sort of, debrief after RIAT. So as you can see, I'm currently looking at the shots from the Sunday, and these are all taking at Totterdown, so underneath the display line. And you see I've been through a few and outlined some of my favourites. I mean, there's a lot, and I still need to do some culling and sort out. There's a lot of out of focus stuff and some stuff that didn't quite work, trying to shoot into the sun. So I'll just turn the filters on and see if we can work for an edit. So I quite like the look of this, and Saturday was the first day really. The Sunday, sorry, first day we sort of had breaks in the cloud and actually had some decent light to play with. The Saturday, in stark contrast, is very grey, as you can see here. Although it did try to break a couple of times, but it still wasn't the worst of days for shooting in by any stretch. There's loads of fluff, but the light, very difficult. You can see my ISO's at 2000, so I've still managed to get some good edits, but I guess that's the challenge, right? So anyway, let's go back to that shot that I want to work with. So you can already see that sometimes images will catch my eye as I go through the library. Let's just reset that to show you what obviously it looked like in the library when I was scanning through. So I'd have the filters off. Let's sorry. Take the filters off, and I always build standard previews. That's something that I just find it does take a long time from the upload, especially when there's 352 gigabytes worth of images across the 6 days. So they do take a while to build, but it gives you the speed later, and I tend to use the arrows on the keypad and just cycle through until I find something I like. And if I go, oh, I like that, I'll give it a 5-star. If there's something that's out of focus, see if we can find something along here. That one, for example, I'll just hit the X key and flag it to delete later. So that's sort of my process for sorting through. So here's that sequence of I think this is the Italian. No, it's RAF Typhoon. Just cutting through the sky there and pulling a lot of vapor, which is so cool. I'm trying to keep it in the frame was a struggle, and I think just didn't quite have my shutter speed high enough for that pass, but this looks good. So that's the one I've rated a 5, and then you can do a quick shortcut to get to the crop tool by just pressing R in Lightroom, and you can then press the X to turn from portrait and landscape, but only in crop. Of course, if you press the X key outside of the crop tool, you'll actually flag it as rejected. So just something to remember there. So I quite like to use the 4x5 crop. That's something that works very well for Instagram. Of course, it's a little bit annoying that we have to edit with that kind of output in mind, and you can't just display the image how you want. So yeah, that's good. Obviously there's a bit of a crop on this, so I might have to sort. I think there's enough space around that jet. Just a little tweak. You'll probably see that I changed my mind a lot of times during this process. So let's come up to the top now. So I always start by turning the image black and white, and I use the Alt key, dragging the sliders, just sort out where the masks, where the clipping's happening in the pixels. So just looking for any areas that turn black. Now anything that should be pure black, of course, you can let it clip, but in this image there's nothing pure black. So somewhere around there looks good. Again, I'm not looking at the sliders when I'm doing this. I'm looking at the screen and seeing what the slider's doing. I don't care what the sliders are set at. Let's pull the shadows up a little bit now. So we are going to uncover a bit of noise, and you know, the ISO is nice and low, but noise still hides in the shadows, and it doesn't matter what ISO you'd have shot this on, you would still end up with noise in the shadows. Obviously, different cameras deal with that better. So I'll actually leave that about there. Just find a little happy medium where those highlights are. Contrast is there, and now let's bring the exposure up a little bit. I don't want to lose any of the detail in that lovely fluff. Let's put the colour back in. So it looks good, but my first impressions are it's a little bit on the cool side, so I'm just going to boost up the warmth. I'm just doing that by clicking on the tab and using the arrow keys just to cycle through. Maybe there's a slight hint of purple to this, so I'll press the tab. Just did a bit of green, that looks good to me. Now let's have a look what the dehaze is going to do. Not going to need much dehaze because the light is actually slightly behind the aircraft, so it's illuminating that fluff here and giving that slight rainbow effect, which I'm hoping we'll be able to bring out in a moment. But obviously this area is all in the shadow, so we could do stuff to bring that detail back, but again, noise will be the bane of our lives here, shall we say. So let's just have a little look what the clarity will do. See, you might find as you go through your edit process that just tweaking the slider, you feel like that some sliders stay the same for you, and that might just reflect your style. So I nearly always use +4 on texture and +8 on clarity, and then if I need to do anything else, I'll come into the masking, which I shall be doing in a moment. So the rest is a bit of is color. So I like to now I've sorted the tones out, that I'll go in and use the masking. So I used to use select subject a lot. Now I find that that's not accurate enough anymore, but selecting objects can be very good. So you don't have to be precise here, you just paint over what you class as the object, or the subject in this case. Make sure you cover it all, and you can't let go, because as soon as you let go, that's what triggers it to find the object. So as anticipated, this area here it can't really find, so, and it's missed out this canard here. So we can try again and just add to that mask and select that area, and that's done a very good job. And we can try and see what it does with this area of wing. And it's done a very, very good job, to be fair. And it will select these, so we might have to remove that in a moment. So you can create presets now. Well, you have been able for a long time, but with the masking, you can create preset. Well, there used to be brushes, but of course everything's grouped into this masking now. And you just do that by adding in your own. So let's say we wanted a 50% shadow increase, and then all you have to do is just say save current settings as a new preset, and you can call it whatever you like. So you'll see that I've done this before, and I've got quite a few here, and there's a few preset ones that come with Lightroom already in there, but there's a nice little one I've made here called Aircraft Sharpen, and that just sticks in +5 on the whites, which is a neat little trick for if you find a mid-tonal area and you can boost the whites on it. That's a very nice way of bringing out the detail without that sort of too much punchiness that the shadow slider or the exposure slider can do. And this preset mask also puts +5 on the texture, +5 on the clarity, and +5 on the sharpness. So I'm happy with that, but I'm going to give this a little tweak with the shadows now. And if you press the Shift and Control button together, that brings up the magnifying glass. So you can see all this noise that's appeared in here. It's just where the light isn't, but we can deal with that in a moment. So I think I'm pretty happy with where that is. Don't want to introduce too much noise or take away the shadows, because you know shadows do give depth. So I'm pretty happy with how that's looking for the moment. Actually, why not? Let's try boosting the texture and see what that does. Sometimes just bring out a little bit more definition, which it actually is very well. Now I hope it's reflected in the screen record. We can zoom in a little bit more and see if, and if you hold the space bar down, you can click and drag. That might just touching. Obviously, it does have the downside of upping the noise as well, or enhancing the noise that is there. But if we look at that from, you can't that sort of that much zoom. It's more than okay. I'll just do the same with the clarity. Now, a lot of people, when they first try out these three sliders, are some of the most powerful in Lightroom, and you drag these up, it can go very wrong very quickly. And also you can get some nasty haloing. So I'm going to actually bring that up to, I'm going to leave it at +5 where it was, but as you can see, I've gone quite high on the texture there, and that has worked quite nicely. Don't think we need any dehaze on this. No, that's good. So now I'm going to actually focus on the sky. So there's not a lot going on in that sky for my liking, but there's stuff we can do to improve that. So with this, you could, again, go through the create mask and try selecting the sky, but we already have this mask built. And that mask is covering everything in that object, or the subject, if you like. So instead of having to recreate the mask, we can actually just invert this. And you do that by clicking those three dots there, and you can press duplicate and invert mask. And that will create a brand new mask, the exact opposite to the one you've duplicated it from, and reset all the sliders for you, which is so helpful. So now I can work on the sky individually. So it's key to remember that everything that's red, and you can change this color down here to anything you like, but I like to keep it red. And it's important to remember that it's actually missing out this. So anything we do to the sky, it's going to be targeting this area as well. So I may have to come back and paint that back out with a brush in a moment. So don't want to do that, it's going to look too rubbish. Certainly don't want to bring the, so actually what I'm going to do is come down to the dehaze and see what we could just bring that lovely deep blue out. +10 is going to be about right. So now let's have a look, see what the black sliders will do. Just tweak that around a little bit. The whites, now see about the whites, as I said, because this sky is a mostly mid-tonal area, just tweaking those whites can really bring it out. Just creates a really nice effect. Shadows I'm going to leave alone. Contrast, leave that alone. So once again, I like to add some bit of gradient into the sky. So the light is going to be coming from up here, as we can see all this area of the aircraft's in shadow. Excuse me. So what I'll do is actually duplicate this mark again. Now remember, we don't want to invert it, or we can just go back to the old one and duplicate and invert mask. And now what you can do is, if you hold the Alt key, it brings up this little icon here which says intersect, so we can actually make any of these options appear within that selection. So I'm going to use a gradient. I'm going to hold Shift to make it stick to the horizontal, and I'm going to hold Alt to really feather this, and I'm going to drag that across the entire image. And now, with a little bit of tweaking of the exposure, I'm going to take the tone down of that. I just want to reflect the angle of the light, so I'm going to actually put this on the slight angle. Again, Shift and Control, I'll be able to zoom around and bring that up to there. And something like that's about right in my book. Let's have a little look at selecting this area here. So actually I'm going to subtract. So you probably wanted to do this before I created that intersect mask. So have a nice feather. I'm just going to paint this area out. Actually, it might be easier if I lose the overlay. A little bit. I'll make sure the auto mask is off, because there's nothing here for that to stick to. Paint that out. Same with this area here. So I'm going to come back and target that later. I don't want the effects to roll that. That's okay, so that's good. And now I need to do the same for this. Subtract, brush, and I'll just paint that bit out. Same for here. Don't want to lose that nice fluff. So go back into that mask and let's just have a little tweak of the white. So that's really nicely deepening that area now. And then if you get happy, of course we have an overall amount slider now, so we can back that off to our heart's content. That's good. I'm now going to go back to that mask and I'm going to duplicate it, because we've obviously made those adjustments to the vapor. But remember, this is where it gets a little bit confusing. If you're not naming your masks, you don't want to duplicate and invert it, you just want to duplicate the already previous inverted mask here. Then I'm going to hit reset, press Alt again, and this time I'm going to intersect it with a radial and mimic where the sun's coming from, which is going to be out there. Go nice wide, make sure it's fully feathered. Just drag this around a little bit, and now what I'm going to do is just bring up the exposure a little bit, the whites, the black slider, maybe not so much, and punch a little bit of warmth in. And that's as if the sun, excuse me, as if the sun was coming from behind. And you can also take a bit of clarity away, a bit of texture away, and a little bit of dehaze. So we've got something going on now in the sky. Let's just show you what that looks like without the masking. Oh, I've got to hold that down. And you can see just from the masking alone how much of a punch that's given that image. So now what we can do, we can actually use the good old-fashioned brush and see what we can get out of this vapor on the wing. So I'm going to start off in the shaded area, see if we can bring some of that to life. Now, of course, I don't want to create false light. I'll make a few little tweaks on there, something like that. And we'll just do a nice liberal brush. Actually, you can turn the flow rate down on that. Just bring out some of this gorgeous vapor, which is what we were praying for most of the weekend as soon as we saw the dodgy sort of looking forecast. Well, there we go. Do that. Now, shadows tend to be on the cooler side, so we could cheat a little bit and push a little bit of warmth in, and that would make it appear like it's more in the light. The shadows aren't really doing a lot in that. The highlights, the whites, I suppose the blacks a little bit. More, we can hit it with the overall. That's cool. We like that. Liking that a lot. Just over that. So now I'm going into the lighter area. I'm going to treat that differently. So I'm going to start a new mask with a brush. And let's start in this area here and see what we can achieve or pull out of this. So do that. Let's mess around with the temperature, which I don't think it's going to do much now. Actually go quite high on the saturation here. I might just up the flow rate on the brush a bit more and really go to town on that. That looks quite cool. A bit of contrast might just see I've gone over that edge a little bit. So if you press Alt, the current brush you're making, it will target only. I just want to get it away from that sky a little bit. That's better. Let's see if we can tweak anything else out of this. It's tricky. Clarity. Dehaze not too much. Texture not so much. So it might be about as much as we can rescue or pull out of that sky. Now, because I was only targeting this sort of area here, I'm now going to make a new mask and target the vapour coming off this wing. So it's already in the light, so I don't need to do too much to this. I'm just going to maybe a little bit on the whites, and just liberally follow where that vapour is coming off the wing. And now might just push a little bit of warmth into it. Again, this is all down to how creative you want to push your edits. I don't want to go too much. I don't want to make it look too false. So something like that. So let's see what that looks like without masking at all, and with. I think that starting to look cool. So something else I like to do is, once again, it will involve the preset masks, and I'm going to come into the canopy here. You can see that noise lurking in there, but we are zoomed in at probably well over 100% now, especially with the crop too. And I'm going to paint over the canopy, and there's a neat little trick. It doesn't always work, depending on where the canopy's in the light, in the shade, that kind of thing. And I've got a little preset here, and I've got two. I've got a basic glass cut through and a canopy cut through, and the canopy cut through I use is a little bit of a punchy, so you can see what it's done to my sliders. And again, I'll turn that off, and it just gives a nice little punch to the canopy, and helps cut through that glass or perspex. So you can see what it's done is quite a heavy amount of, again, on the whites, pulling up the contrast and the shadows, and a bit on the exposure. And because those canopies usually are in the shadows, and what I said earlier is how shadows tend to be more on the blue side of things, we just cheat, in inverted commas, and pull some or push some warmth into that, and that will make it look like there's light falling. And then obviously quite high on the clarity there, and that just helps to cut through the canopy and draw out some of the detail. And what we could also do is hit another brush here, paint over this HUD, pull up the whites on that, and a little bit on the saturation, and that's really going to make that HUD stand out and be the centerpiece. Fortunately, the pilot's name, Nathan, this year, is just hidden behind the join in the canopy there, so not too much I can bring out on his. But again, if you can do that similar thing, you can use the brush to target specific areas of the image. So that's looking rather good. So now I'm going to come away from masking for the moment, and this time I'll come back to the overall saturation. So if we can use the tone curve and have a look, see what that will do to the image. Just pull a few of these areas around very subtly, and it's not done a huge amount, but it can be quite a nice little way of tuning the exposure. Now let's work through the colours. So see what the hue does to this. So you can see it's very subtle. You can see the area around here changing. That's probably the reflection of possibly the grass, the light that's being rebounded off the ground. I mean, he's probably about 150 feet here. Take the greens towards take the yellows towards orange a little bit. Green, that's probably going to affect the HUD, as we can see. But also there's a little bit on the fuselage. I want to watch those sort of vapor rainbows, see if that's going to help tweak any of that. Blue, well, there's a lot of blue in that background, so got to be very careful at tweaking this. Probably just leave it on the side of aqua, maybe. In fact, yeah, we're going to leave it there. And then purple. So that is tweaking this, which is nice to see. So we can push that way, and that will help bring out that area. So we know that the purple slider is going to have some effect on that area, which is handy to know. And we'll try the same with magenta. Very rarely I find images that does contain that colour. Let's try red now. That's going to target some of the text along here. Tweak that. Tweak yellow. Let's bring out some nice colour on the front section here. Aqua. Targeting that HUD a little bit. And now the blue. I'll leave that relatively there. Purple. And that, you can just see it in the in the Vapour. So I don't want to go too much because you get nasty banding. Just finding a happy balance. Again, not looking at the slider, looking at what it's doing. And I think that's about right. Same for magenta, which doesn't seem to have done much. The reds again. The orange, that's just tweaking those areas from earlier. And the yellow slider having quite a big effect on those areas that are catching the sun. Greens again is going to target that HUD. Aqua as well to some extent. We can use the blue luminance to take that away from the sky a little bit. Now purple again targeting that rainbow effect in the Vapour. And magenta. So that's about right for that section of the colour. So there's another little trick that I tend to use here. So colour grading seems a little bit scary, but all it is the only area of Lightroom that you can actually add colour in. But there's a nice little trick here that you don't have to actually add any colour, but there's this little slider here called luminance, and if you select the mid-tonal range, you can just give it a little bit of a lift. And you see how that's just making that image come alive. So if you look in the histogram, it's just pulling the centre section around. And it just gives the image a nice little lift. And if I turn that off and I'll turn that on, you can see the subtle difference, but it does give a great effect. So now we're coming into the new section of Lightroom, or reorganized section of Lightroom. So you used to using Adobe's Denoise raw details and super resolution before, you used to have to right click and go to enhance. Or there was a little, I think it was at the bottom of here, there was an AI denoise function. But what it would have to do is create basically another file alongside the existing one. But that's all changed, and we have this here now. So there is clearly some noise in this image, especially where we've lifted the areas. So let's give it a go. And just let the magic happen. So a little bit frustratingly, this slider is set to 50 as default. So as soon as this kicks in, it will be very heavy on the denoise. And wait for it, and there we go. So you can see it almost gives it a bit of a air-fix plastic effect, and it can be a bit too unsightly. I mean, the image is sharp, but we've lost a lot of the texture, so we need to back this right off. And let's see where this goes. So by applying denoise, it also applies raw details, enhanced raw details by default. So we can see that noise is now back. Still less than what it was, so we're zoomed into 200% here. So if you pixel peeping this deep, you are going to see a lot of imperfections. So let's bring that up to +10 and see what effect we get. Still minimal, so let's come up to 20. Just starting to touch the noise now. There's 25. So let's zoom out to 100%. And I think that's a little bit too heavy, so let's back it back to 20. I think I'm happy with that. So now we can do the sharpening, but actually I've forgotten to tick these little gems from earlier. And you'll just see, just remove some of those little lines around the subject, just imperfections you get with those, and you see it more obviously on the tail just there. So zoomed in that far you can see it. Without it on, you really see it enhanced there. And ticking that gets rid of it nicely. And again, a little bit of vignetting from the lens. Now I use the 100 to 400 on the 5D Mark IV, but I've also got the converter on, so it's great that Adobe recognizes this. And you can just see it's not so much any distortion in the shot, just a bit of vignetting, which I quite like, so I might just keep that in. So now let's tackle with the sharpening. And of course we've already applied a little bit of sharpening in that mask I applied earlier. So what I tend to do is come out in this box and find something that looks with defining lines and sharp. So the text is a little bit muffled here because, or jumbled because of the crop and the noise. But if we come up to the canopy, and I'll zoom into 100% here, possibly a bit more. Excuse me, and I'll start by applying the masking. So this is basically showing you where the masking is being applied along the lines. So I don't want to like sharpen stuff in the sky. I certainly don't want to sharpen the vapor. I want that nice and soft and nice. So, and you can also see the noise in this bit down here. So I'm going to come up, so it's touching most of those lines. So 84 looks good. And now I will start to add the sharpening in. So again, like I said with the texture and clarity earlier, that you might find that there's just a sweet spot that you like, and for some reason 97 seems to be my favourite point on the sharpening, or amount on the sharpening. And then because I'm using the converter, I use a little bit of the sharpness, so I just like to bump that up to +2 just to give a bit more depth on the lines. And let's have a look. Let's see what detail this will punch in. Probably because of the noise in those shadows, it will probably only enhance that. So I'm going to leave that at about 35. So there's the sharpening done. So now I'll come back up to the colour, and I'll go fairly high on the vibrance to start with, and then I shall back the saturation down. And it's just a nicer way of achieving a more natural looking effect with the colour. So now I could leave it there, but I'm just going to make a few more alterations to those masks from earlier. So I'm going to bring up that radial from earlier, and I'm going to bring up that darkening mask from earlier. I might just take a little bit of the colour away from that, purely because that blue looks a little bit too rich for my liking. You can always just play around with the temperature as well, bring that up. I might just last little bolster on that. I'm happy with the very harsh highlights that will be clipping. I've lost all the detail in there anyway. And I think I'm quite happy with that edit. So that's where I'm going to stop on this particular one. I might, he says, as he just makes one more alteration, I'm going to bring that tail into there and bring that down so it's a nice frame filler. And that's ready to export and upload to Instagram. So that's what I'll do. I'll in fact go back to the library module because the way I like to order my images at the moment is to actually name them. So this is the RAF Typhoon, and this was on the Sunday 20th. As you can see, I've already done a shot from there before, and then have a quick look where I want to put my watermark. I think the bottom left will suit that quite nicely. I'm actually going to resize that down. It's a little bit too big for my liking. There we go. Update that preset. I really hope that Adobe one day sort this module out, because it's so ropey to put your mask on. Your watermark, sorry. So there we go. I'll just click export. And there is the finished JPEG in all its glory. So I hope you found that useful. And thank you for listening to me ramble on for the last few minutes. I say few minutes, probably, what are we? We've done half an hour, 36 minutes, so that's a good standard edit. And of course, if I'd be a lot faster if I wasn't talking through all my steps, but I hope that you'll be able to pick some tips out of that, and hopefully find some of it useful. And please get involved in the Apex group. That's what it's there for. We're not after anything ourselves. We're just out to help people out, and that's what we enjoy doing. So, of course, any questions, get involved in the group. We've also got the YouTube channel where this video will also be uploaded to, if I haven't shared the link in the group to it. And thank you for watching.